What's good, everybody? Like I said before, I said I was going to be doing an extended version of the last book I reviewed, The Body is Not an Apology, The Power of Radical Self-Love by Sonia Renee Taylor. Again, like I said before, if you had a chance to be at Central Washington University when she came, you got to hear a little bit about what her message is about the book. But in this video, I'm going to kind of dive deeper into the book. Again, like I said, the book itself is only 116 pages. It's a short read, but there's some really big key elements that you pick up when she's talking about this idea of radical self-love within the book. So one of the things I'll kind of start off with while I'm looking through the books, and just some of you know, but if you didn't know, I like to take notes when I read. So I pick up the bigger details of things. Some books I take more notes, other books I take less notes. And obviously if the book is shorter, then there are not going to be as many. But I'll share with you some of the main things that I picked up from the book myself. I think it kind of differs for everybody because, people think differently, have different perspectives, and are going through different parts or points in their life. So, depending on what that is for you, you might get something different out of the book than I did, but I think all of the content that was in it was great holistically. But the first place I think I'm going to start off is page 19. So one of the things is she talks about the three pieces. We're not talking about pieces like a piece of a pie, literally three pieces, P-E-A-C-E-S. And so the three are, first one being make peace with not understanding, number two, make peace with difference, and three, make peace with your body. And this kind of spoke volumes to me because I think when we talk about when we're talking about people today and trying to deal with who they are as people and kind of people on their journey of self-discovery, I think that these three things are big um, because people don't really get out of their own way before they start exploring everything outside of themselves. And I think the biggest thing is that over the last decade or 2 decades, I think people have been on a journey, and there's been more concentration in the public eye about trying to find who you are, what you think your journey is, and what direction you're trying to go into. And I think part of that also has to do with things when we talk about anything from school to work, things that can make us stress related. You have to be able to kind of take the stress off yourself to be able to grow as a person and find out again who you are. So those three things really stuck with me because I don't think people always think about those. And so yeah, those are the first thing. And then as she goes through the book, she talks about peace with not understanding, peace with difference, and then the third one being peace with your body, and it breaks down each one of those in pretty good detail. So again, if that's something that you're looking or haven't really thought about, like maybe why am I struggling, it might be because you haven't found peace with yourself and understanding, and again, like she says, being okay with not understanding. So the second part that I thought was a big part in this book, I didn't mark the page, but it really stuck with me, and I just wrote down this phrase, is the body shame profit complex. And so I'm kind of looking at my notes right here while I'm doing this, but the body shame profit complex basically is looking at industry as a way to be like, well, you know what, because you're fat, you have to get these diet pills, because you don't get these diet pills, you're not going to be able to succeed, and you're not going to be the person that you want to be. This is kind of far from the truth. I talked about this in the short minute review that I did earlier with the book when I first posted it, but I think that's definitely a fallacy because yes, there's the health aspect to, like, maybe how much weight you have on your body and stuff, but people also have different experiences with their bodies, and they also are at different points of their journey with health. So just because somebody might have more weight on their body doesn't necessarily mean they're in a dire place with their health situation. It could be different. And this also speaks to the point of, like, Sonia Renee Taylor in her book, she talks about how she used to go and run. I think she was running, like, I'm paraphrasing here, but in the book at the end she was saying that she was running like 5 miles per day. And then one day she was just like, why am I doing this? Why am I running 5 miles a day? I hate running. Why am I doing this? And part of that, and this kind of goes back to the body shame profit complex, is that society, as well as these other industries that are saying that you need to do these things to make your body look good. You want to be able to look like a Channing Tatum or Gal Gadot. Like, all those people are great, but again, they're kind of shaming you into these things. So she just found out, like, I don't want to have to go running. I don't like to run, and running's not for everybody. She wanted to go to this dance class where she'd have much more fun and still could be active. So everybody kind of has their own individual thing that works for them, especially when we're talking about our bodies. But again, you shouldn't be ashamed of your body. Now, it's not bad for you wanting to improve your body, but you shouldn't be shamed into that. And that's how industries make a lot of money off of us. And I mean, that's the truth. I just don't think we necessarily think about it. Some people might be more lucky to have a skinnier body, and some people, you know, might have a bigger body. But again, going back to that point, it's not about whether you're lucky to have a skinny body or not have a skinny body. You know, there's a societal idea that we need to have skinny bodies and we need to look like something, but that's not the case for everybody. So again, goes back to the idea: appreciate yourself. Don't buy into the body shame profit complex, because I think you degrade yourself. And kind of going back with understanding who you are and accepting who you are and being okay with that before you look at all the things that are external to your body and who you are. So the other part she talks about, page 46 through 47, just in case y'all want to read it, or you want to go to certain sections of the book. She talks about how, let's see, she talks about how governments govern bodies, and so in the United States we talk a lot about maybe things such as abortion. So women's bodies have been governed for a long time, because we live in a male-dominated society. She is pointing to this idea also, and it's not only males, but that's one example I use in the United States. A lot of people think abortion shouldn't be legal, and if you're like me in the opinion that a woman should have control over her body and should be able to choose for herself, that's one way that the government has tried to govern those things. Abortion is still legal right now, but obviously we'll kind of see, where that goes. So some examples she uses: in 76 countries, there are laws criminalizing homosexuality. In at least 5 countries, the death penalty can be applied to those found to be gay. Immigrants can be deported from New Zealand for having a body mass index over 35. And those first two, she has a few other examples, but those first two are very specific. So first we talk about homosexuality, which we go into a bigger discussion with the LGBTQ community, and we've heard those things before, and how gay people were viewed for a long time, especially in the United States, and still viewed in certain respects of not being acceptable in other societies, in other countries around the world. And then the other part where she's talking about immigrants being deported from New Zealand for having a body mass index over 35, that's just kind of ridiculous. So those are 2 examples that show you that there are still ways that governments govern bodies today, and you could find that in maybe some other countries too. She has another one. Let's see. The Asexualization Act of 1909 made it legal in California to forcibly sterilize anyone the state deemed mentally ill, mentally deficient, or possessing a feeble-mindedness. California was still forcibly sterilizing female prison inmates as recently as 2010. Most were inmates of color. So you can even see that even some of these things that were put into law back in the 20th century weren't out of where I'm looking for. They were still on the books until 2010, and they were still happening. And so that's very important to note, that these things still do exist, and they haven't been that far removed from when they were put in place and when they were last used. So just another thing to look at. I thought that was really good. Governments governing bodies. I'm also a huge political science nerd, and I want to be a lawyer and run for office one day, so that's why I took interest in that. Let's see some of the other parts. Let's see, page 64 through 67, the 4 pillars. Let's see. So the 4 pillars, let's see. And so this passage, she really talks about, so she says, we know that adopting a radical self-love lifestyle is a process of thinking, doing, and being, that changing the way we think, act, and are in our daily lives can feel like an assignment of planetary proportions. Implementing practices to structure this endeavor is the equivalent of turning on the high beams amid the fog. Rather than collapsing under an avalanche of new ideas and behaviors, we can install signposts and guardrails that help us know if we are still on the road to radical self-love. And the 4 pillars of practice can help us Ooh, oh, corral our wildly thinking, fortify love-laden action, and give us access to a new way of being in the world. And so then she goes on to state what these four pillars are, and these four pillars are as follows: taking out the toxic, mind matters, unapologetic action, and collective compassion. And so those are the four things. Now, obviously, if you read the book and if you want to go, like I said, it's between pages 64 and 67. If you want to go into more detail, she goes through each pillar one at a time. And I think out of the four, though, I'm just going to hit on one real quick. Again, I think I'm a big believer that a lot of times people tend to be in their way more than they think. So that first one, I think I really connected with probably the most right off the bat, and that would be taking out the toxic. And again, I've been lucky enough to work as a peer health educator in the Wellness Center at Central Washington University. And so some of the stuff, this kind of related to me when I've done presentations on mindfulness. People talk about stress relief, and that, again, like I said, it connects with mindfulness. And one thing people don't do is you're going to have normal stresses in your life. So like I said earlier, work, school, if you have things with your family or friends going on, those things are all natural stresses in your life. But I think the other thing is people don't look at how much stress can you relieve from yourself. And so in the Wellness Center, we always talk about being mindful and taking a few minutes a day to be able to just think about being in the present and not thinking about the past or the future, because we don't spend enough time thinking about the moment we're in. And I think that also goes back to what she talks about. She talks about taking out the toxic. Taking in toxic messages blocks our pathway to radical self-love without any real effort on our part. Just walking down the street or standing in the grocery store checkout line can be a stroll down body shame lane thanks to billboards, bus advertisements, and tabloid covers. By engaging in the everyday activities of our society, we subconsciously absorb views about our bodies that are antithetical to radical self-love. So in this part, she's also talking about, so from my perspective, I kind of connected with mindfulness. From her part, when she's looking at it in the book, she's also talking about the things that are around us. And again, that goes back to the body shame profit complex, but all these things that are around us naturally make us think that we have to shame our bodies, because again, it's a societal thing. You see an advertisement of Cristiano Ronaldo, who's a superstar soccer player, and you're thinking, wow, like I don't look like him, so I must be a failure. Or somebody looks at advertisement of Gabrielle Union. She's a very beautiful black woman, but because I'm not in the shape she's in, then there must be something wrong with me, and that's not the case. So I think also the point that she makes is kind of removing yourself, or understanding at the same time that I don't have to be these things, I just need to be who I am, and that is one of the beginning steps to true radical self-love. And just remembering to keep that same energy with you wherever you're at. So and then I think, let's see if I have anything else for this book. And again, if you all have any questions, like feel free to reach out. If you have a question about the section or something, I could take a look at the book. All the books that I read, I have on my own, because I love to have the information right at hand if I need it for my friends, or if people have questions, or if people don't know something and I can educate them on something, then that's also a good chance for me to do that also. But let's see, I don't think, oh no, wait, 88. What is this? Radical self-love communication. And so these are, so she has 14 of these, and these are gets to the very last part of the book, is 88 through 91. And I'll probably just run through them real quick, the titles of each one of these. But she basically says, as you move the conversation of radical self-love from an internal dialogue out into your family, community, and world, try on the unapologetic agreements that appear below. Commit to engaging in the type of radical self-love communication that grows our understanding of ourselves and one another. The type of communication that fosters global change. So, you want to have radical self-love for yourself, but you also want to put that back out into the world and try to move the pendulum on that, because we want to get to a world that has more radical self-love, because Sonya Renee Taylor's message is very much that she thinks that radical self-love can help solve a lot of problems in the world, and help us get to a place where everybody's accepted and people don't have to be ashamed of who they are. So I'm going to go through, she has 14, I'm just going to read the titles, then you all could go online, or she also has a Kindle version of her book, or you can look them up online. She also has a website, so I really highly suggest that you go there. If you type in Sonya Renee Taylor, and I believe it's under Radical Self-Love, if you Google that, you can get her website and it'll come up and you can go take a look at all the material that she has. Really good stuff. And she's also a spoken word poet. If you didn't know that, that's what she originally had got into before she wrote this book. So I really suggest that you go listen to her spoken word, because she was also a champion. So there's a plug for Sonya Renee Taylor. This whole book is a plug for her, but really she's great. This is a great book. I suggest you read it. So here are the 14. Number 1, be a body shame free friend. 2, engage and encourage curiosity driven dialogue, not debate or arguing. 3, embrace multiple perspectives. 4, have compassion for and honor people's varied journeys. 5, expect and accept discomfort. 6, acknowledge intent while addressing impact. 7, take breaks for self-care. 8, interrupt attempts to derail. 9, remember that personal attacks, name-calling, heavy sarcasm, and general unkindness are unhelpful. 10, practice unapologetic inquiry. 11, have conversations based on what was actually said. 12, assume the best about one another. 13, celebrate difference. And 14, make the goal of the conversation radical, unapologetic love. So those are the 14, and I think some of those, even like just listening to some of like those titles of those communication methods within Radical Self-Love, you're probably thinking like, whoa, I don't know if I can do all that yet, because humans just have opinions. Like as humans, we have certain ways that we think. We're set in our ways on a lot of things, and when you meet people from different backgrounds and people who are raised differently than you really go into those things. But if you want to have the best experience with somebody and try to move along this message of radical self-love, I think your best option is to keep an open mind and use these radical self-love communication styles. So that's the end of the book review. If you all have any more questions, just let me know. This is the first kind of extended video. If you have any other books that I've already read that you'd like me to do an extended version of, just let me know. We're gonna be close to 20 minutes, so I'm trying to test this out for the first time. But let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed this. You don't have to obviously watch all of it if you don't want to. We'll see if maybe I'll shorten it down, and some might be longer depending on the length of books. But we'll just see how it goes. It's just kind of a learning process for me too. So I hope you all enjoyed the book review. Again, if you have any questions, if you all have my information, you can message me or leave them in the comments. Again, I highly suggest you read this book, and if you do, enjoy it. Until the next book review, I'm Jakari Singh, and I can't wait to talk to you again once I'm finished with my next book. Thank you all for watching.